We got to talk about this Candace Owens thing with Emmanuel Macron.
Macron.
So she apparently had gone, I think we talked about this last week, that she had gone and met with some investigative journalist, spent like a couple hours with this person, got real, I mean, because she's already talked about this on her show many, many times, that she believes Brigitte Macron is not an actual woman. And that there's all kinds of mystery about this, all kinds of proof. There's like I mean, there was a document that she referred to that's thousands of pages long that seemed, when I just did the bare minimum looking at it, I was like, this seems kind of legit. You know what I mean?
I'm on board with this. I'm on board with this whole thing.
I'm starting to be on board with this too. She's not backed off from this story, even though she's been told a million times that there's no evidence. She has continued to work at it. And she was apparently on January 30th, she was going to dedicate an entire episode of her show to really going through like everything that this investigative journalist told her. Well, Macron himself got wind of that and sent her like this 100-page letter, a legal letter threatening her if she comes out with this. And she was like, oh, no, you did not. So she hasn't done the full show about this yet, but she did talk about the letter. And now it comes out and they've admitted to this, because before, like when he was running for election, he went with the story that, yeah, like his wife is older and yes, she was his teacher. And yes, they got together when he was her student. But the longtime story was that he was 17 years old at the time.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And she was 34, which is still so ew.
It's gross. It's very Mary Kay Letourneau, you guys.
So gross.
Yeah.
Well, now they have been forced to admit that he was not 17. He was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's questions about whether that was legal at the time. Here is Candace to give the lowdown on that.
What on earth were they thinking, including that? Okay. But here's where it gets really interesting. Okay. Then they insist on explaining to me that calling someone a rapist in France, they have different laws, and they insist that it's not statutory rape because Emmanuel was or would have been 15. They heavily imply this. This is the exact verbiage from the letter. It reads, Mrs. Macron did not statutorily rape President Macron. Let us be clear that the age of consent in France is 15. The two met and fell in love in 1993 when she was a drama teacher and he was 15 years old. When President Macron was 17, he vowed to marry Mrs. Macron, following through with his promise. They wed in 2007 when President Macron was 29 years old. Now, I want to first let you guys know that this is stunning because all throughout the time that President Macron was running, their story was that he was 17 years old. Okay. Now we have here writing that they're now adjusting that. All the publications said, oh, he was 17. It makes him sound like he's almost legal. And she was, however, I think they said she was 34. And one of the things that we told you was that this whole legend that they created in the legacy media was dishonest, and they allowed this to go on and go on until people started looking, independent journalists, and going, wait a second, Emmanuel Macron was not 15. And I also believe there's an interview where Emmanuel Macron states that he met her before he was 15 years old. But them implying that the age of consent in France is 15 is actually wholesale dishonesty, because what they're leaving out is the age of consent at that time when they were together was 15 only if the person that they had the affair with, the sexual affair with, was not someone who had any power or control. That is still the law in France today, okay? So in order for it to be age of consent, it cannot be a teacher, it cannot be a therapist, it cannot be any person when you are a minor that has control over you. And as they mentioned in that same paragraph, Emmanuel Macron was the student of Brigitte Macron. So that would not have been allowed under the law. And this is something that we are happy to debate. In America, this would be statutory rape one way or the other. And in France, I'm pretty sure that still constitutes statutory rape. But we will allow you to respond to that in a more thorough manner, because now that we've established connection, you have no excuse not to answer our pointed questions.
Can you imagine if it were flipped, though? If Mrs. Macron was a man? Well, that's the jury's still out, right? You know what I mean? If it were like, and he was a woman, or it was a girl. Like, my daughter is 14. She's getting ready to be 15. I cannot imagine
my God.
If the teacher was a dude, like preying on her in school. OMG.
Right? Like that's disgusting.
It is disgusting. Right. And so this whole thing is freaking weird. Now there's like this whole is Brigitte Macron a dude?
And they apparently in that super long letter, they were saying things like, she doesn't have to answer that. Like, so they don't just immediately say, here are a few pictures that prove that she was a girl from the time she was young. They immediately say she doesn't owe you that explanation, which is kind of weird.
It's
so
a little sketch.
Here's what Candace, she tweeted to Macron. This was, I think, yesterday. Please read this out loud.
Please instruct your lawyers to not ever tell an American what they can and cannot publish. You have kept many secrets in your life, but I am not your personal diary. All correspondences between our legal teams will be available for the public to read. We will be back to your team tomorrow with specific questions for you to answer ahead of the publication of our much wider look into Brigitte's earlier life. As we have already stated, the minor factual errors that we made regarding who gave birth to Brigitte's children will be corrected. Similarly, we will correct our assertion that the communion photo presented as evidence of her youth was recolored. We now know that it was not recolored, but we maintain that the person in the communion photo is not your wife, and we have strong evidence to support that claim. We are not in the business of telling lies. Therefore, we expect that you will, provided the opportunity, simply answer the substance of the question as to whether or not your current wife lived as a man prior to transitioning. We look forward to being in touch.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn is right. It's just so juicy and interesting.
It is so
and I gotta
juicy.
tell you, to me, she just looks like she is a man that transitioned to a woman.
Well, because you sent me that video, I'm going to show it
Mhm.
right now. This is a video. I don't know what the context is. She's standing up and maybe she's teaching, who knows, but she goes to sit down. Find me another
standing.
woman.
Even standing now, Mock. Look at her standing too.
Find me another woman who sits down like this, you
True.
guys, because I've never, ever, ever seen it happen.
I mean, look at her standing. But you're right. The sitting is.
What?
Did you? But there was.
Come on.
But if you let it play, even she sits and like just with her legs like. See her just.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a dude. Such a dude.
Doesn't seem like it, you guys.
Yeah. And
I mean, we're not saying for sure, but like they're not
asking. Listen, people are asking, why do we care about this? I care about it because our politicians lie to us.
And they need to be shown to be liars.
Right.
When they do it.
And if this is a lie, okay, if this is a lie, then what other politicians are lying about? What other relationships and what other things are they lying about? This is such a big lie too, that it feels like they were just testing the world to see if they could get away with it. They could get away with the lie. Right.